Hello, boys and girls, all you college graduates looking for a job. Welcome to Module 6 of Life Launch, the career development course. So this is the most important module of all. So I'm assuming you've looked at some of the other modules, but this is the one I want you to watch kind of over and over again. Whenever you don't have a good idea or didn't have a good week, come back and take another look at this particular module. So this, of course, is based on my books. Cracking the Hidden Job Market and How to Get Any Job are the ones that today's lesson is based on. And the other book that the whole course is based on is a book called The Overnight Resume. So I look forward to having a great session with you about the hidden job market. First, I want to review the three most important things about job search. So the three most important things for you to know about job search are, number one, you get jobs by talking to people. You don't get jobs by applying for jobs. You get jobs by talking to people. So the more talking you do, the closer you're getting to a job. The less talking you're doing, the further you are from a job. Only people can give you a job, not a database, not an applicant tracking system, only people. So what we're going to do is teach you some ways to talk to more people. Number two on the list of the three most important things about job search is that you need 100 leads at all times. You need 100 leads so you'll have something to do. You need to work at this 30 to 40 hours a week, and you can't do that unless you have 100 leads. Let's review what a lead is, of course. A lead is an idea, a rumor, a posted opening, a list, even your entire alumni association. Those are all leads. So I want you to have a robust concept of what a lead is. So a lead is not one company. It's everyone who works at that company and all the branches of that company and everyone who ever used to work at that company. That's a broader definition or idea of a lead that I want you to have. It's a matter of discipline to have 100 of these, and don't forget to look at hoovers.com if you lack a robust enough list. And then the third thing that is on the list of the three most important things to know about job change is that you need to look for work in channels. What that means is you look for a certain type of job. You don't just go from posted opening to posted opening. You get an idea of a type of job and then you go seek that type of job. That doesn't mean that you're not open to opportunity that comes out of left field. Of course you are. But what you're systematically doing is looking for a certain type of job. So the hidden job market is the largest part of the job market. 55 to 80% of jobs trade hands in the hidden job market. You can't ignore that many jobs. But it's not just how many jobs are in the hidden job market. Even more important is the fact that the hidden job market is so much easier. It has so much less competition. Once a job is posted, it'll draw 383 applicants on average. That's a recent research release. So 383, I've been collecting these data for years. So it's not unusual for a posted opening to draw 500 or 600 applications. Let's face it, a recent college graduate is deep down in a pile when you're looking at 500 other candidates. But the hidden job market, the number of competition that you have is really reduced. It's often 4 or 5 people and sometimes no one at all. So I want you to be in the hidden job market because it's the biggest part of the job market and it's the easiest part of the job market, in particular for anyone who's unusual. Recent college graduate, someone with disabilities, someone who's trying to change careers from one area to another area. Their only way to success is through the hidden job market and getting out of those crushing piles of competition that come with posted openings. Let's review how you approach people that aren't posting any openings, that they're not even advertising. So I'm going to give you a series of reasons to approach people. Probably the easiest thing for a recent college graduate or a college student to do is simply to seek people's advice. Now, ironically, you'll find a job faster if you quit applying for jobs and start asking for information. So I want you to practice this because it's not natural. You're going to want to call people up and say, hey, I know you're successful. Do you have a job with your team? Don't do that because you'll actually put them off. Nobody wants to say no. And so if you say, can I have a job with your team? They're going to say no. And it makes them uncomfortable. But if you say, hey, you're successful, you're doing really well, can you give me advice? I'm not looking for a position with your team. I just want your advice. That actually has a very high response rate in the positive. So let's look at some reasons you could ask for an appointment. One reason is simply you want advice. You just identify anyone in the whole world and say, I would like to get your advice. I'm about to graduate from college or I graduated from college. So that's a pretty easy interview to request, and of course you can request it by Skype, which lowers the impact on the other side. And most people will do this as a courtesy. And you can approach anybody with this request, anyone from the top of the company CEO all the way down to somebody who started there last week. My recommendation is show up in the office because you want to show that you're professional, that you dress right, walk right, talk right. So that's my top recommendation. Stepping down from that, of course, you will Skype or take a telephone interview. So that's advice meeting, okay? Number 2 on this list is what's called an informational interview. Informational interviews, we covered the questions that you ask in the interview module. So go back and review that if you don't remember those questions. But informational interviews, that's about a specific type of job. So you say, I want a job as a copywriter in advertising, then you can do that. I want a job as a web developer, then you can do that. I want a job as a business to consumer web designer, then you can do that. You can't just say, I want anything. That's not appropriate. That's an advice interview. That's not an informational interview. So that's another reason to approach somebody. But one of my favorites is a thing called a candidate in waiting interview. That's when you tell somebody, look, I know you're not hiring right now, but I have this particular interest and I have this particular skill set, and I'd love to just stop by, meet you, shake your hand, put my resume on your desk, and I'll be in and out in 5 minutes. And if you promise that, I'll be in and out in 5 minutes. Most people will take a moment to meet with you. And sometimes those things can turn into 10, 15-minute, hour interviews, you never know. But the point is, they don't have a posted opening, and you're promised to be minimally disruptive. And that's very effective because once someone sees your professionalism and looks at your great resume, they do think of you later. And of course, you're going to bug them a little bit, okay? So we'll get to the bugging system in just a minute. So another part of the hidden job market is to simply apply for positions whether they're open or not. And so you really just approach companies and you approach people and you say, I'm looking for a position as a marketing assistant, or I'm looking for a position as an accounting assistant. And you say, who would I talk to about that? I call that just kind of a cold call. You just approach the company and say you're interested in this particular type of opportunity. This has about a 20% success ratio. I think it's pretty positive. It also gives you something to do because any company can be approached this way. And so on the resources page that follows this video, I'm going to give you some examples of what an email would look like for approaching somebody about an informational interview, what an email would look like to approach somebody about a candidate in waiting. So you'll have some resources to help you follow up on this. Now, your task after you have a target, and remember, a target is very specific. You don't want a job on Wall Street, okay? You want a job as a buy-side analyst on Wall Street. You've got to be specific. So after you have that specific, then you need to build these lists of people who can help you identify or get inside these organizations. And so I think of it this way. You want to get 100% of the people that you could possibly meet or know or find or get an introduction to who either works in that industry or could lead you to someone who works in that industry. Now, in the old days, they called this networking, but I don't call it networking. I call it talking to people. You use email to approach people, you follow up with phone calls and Skypes, and you can go way out. You don't have to know them personally. As a matter of fact, the research shows that people that you know very peripherally or can meet are the most promising sources of job leads. It's not your closest friends. It's that friend of a friend or that somebody that you saw at a sporting event last year. Those are the people that give you the hot tips. And if you think about networks like a brain, and the brain has neurons, it has really long dendrites that stick out. That's exactly how a network works. And you want people that are not close to you to be able to give you information. And that leads to the tip about a company that may be hiring or growing. Always ask people, what companies are growing near you? Because they're hiring. Growing companies are definitely hiring. Now, one more thing, and I've got to make this point. It's a really huge point. All companies are always hiring at the entry level. You've got to understand this. A company, it's not a big decision to hire one of you guys. If I like you, I can hire you. If I don't like you, I'm never going to hire you. But let's say I'm not hiring anyone at the entry level. You come into my office, you're presentable, you're professional, you're likable. Boom, it's no big deal for me to hire you. I promise. The coffee service down the hall costs more than an entry-level hire. I'll hire you if I like you. So I want you to make systematic lists of people, not kind of haphazard list or sitting around one day list. I mean a systematic list of people. And I want you to divide that list into 4 categories. Okay? The first category on the list is what are called hiring authorities. So that's somebody, if you were in their office and they liked you, they could just hire you. That's an officer or a function head. And so hiring authorities are in the right industry and they have power. Okay, that's category one. Category two, I want you to make a list of everybody you know that works in the industry that you've targeted. And I don't care where they are. Maybe you want a job in Milwaukee and they're in Dallas. That's fine. They're just in the right industry, but they're not a hiring authority. That's category two. Category three is a really interesting category. I want you to think about all the people you know, and I want you to systematically identify what are called connectors. This is in Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. There are people who collect people. I'm one of them. I know tens of thousands of people. And so there's lots of these people out there, and you know who they are. They tend to run big email campaigns all the time. They've got lots and lots and lots of friends, and they're not all in the same location. So people, collectors, connectors, centers of influence, those are several names for them. Boundary spanners, that's another name for them. So let's systematically look at this category because it's a very interesting category. A cab driver is a boundary spanner. Okay? A teacher or a professor, boundary spanner. They have a position that allows them to get into all these other organizations. A salesperson, boundary spanner. But then, of course, it's also a personality type. So this is a very important place for you to seek information, advice, leads, and referrals from your boundary spanners. And then the fourth category is just everyone else that's left in the whole world, because you don't know who's got the information that you need. Now, for years, I've been teaching my candidates that I work with to ask everybody, who do you know who would know anything about blank? Okay, and then blank is you put what kind of job you're after. So who do you know who would know anything about internships at the United Nations? Who do you know who would know anything about casting agencies in Santa Monica or Hollywood? And so this fourth category is remarkably robust and remarkably successful. So stop trying to figure out who has the information that you need and start asking everybody. I even had a candidate who got a job because she chatted up the taxi driver that was taking her to the first interview that she had that day, and she said, what hot companies are going on in Indianapolis? And the cab driver just named 3 or 4 companies and said, these companies are hot in Indianapolis. On her cell phone, she calls those companies on her way to the interview at the first job and called them up and said, I'm in town. I'm here for 2 days. I'd love to come meet you. And they took that meeting and she got a job at one of those other companies because she properly used a boundary spanner to get information about hot companies. All right, that's the 4 categories. I said be systematic. I'm not fooling around. I want you to get those 4 lists going, put them in Excel, put them on a piece of paper, but be systematic. So the fastest way in the world to get a job, and this is proven by research, it's not just my opinion, is to pick up the phone and call companies and say, I'd love to work for you guys as an X. Who would I talk to about that? So just get a list of companies. I mean, this is really old school because it is telephone. And call them up and say, I'd love to work for you guys as an X. How would I go about doing that? Now look for a fairly high failure rate. As a matter of fact, everything to do with the hidden job market involves a high failure rate because you're getting outside of your closest friends. So you're going to reach out to somebody and they're going to ignore you. They don't know you. So the response rate that you're after, if you beat 10%, you should be super happy. If you beat 25%, you are a superstar at this process. Now, before you say, gosh, I don't want to do anything where 9 out of the 10 attempts that I make are thwarted, well, how about applying for a position using the old school of applying for posted openings? 383 resumes and 1 person gets hired? That's a high failure rate, in my opinion. So what I'm inviting you to do is get comfortable with that failure rate. Know that people are not going to call you back. Now, I want to talk to you about the minimum effort to contact a stranger today. So the minimum effort to contact a stranger today is you email them. Okay, and don't be weird, you guys. Say query from a job seeker, query from a recent college graduate, query from your sister's nephew in, I don't know, wherever you're from. Don't be weird. So you email them and you say you want to talk to them, you just want their advice, or you would love to have an informational interview. Throw a little bit to them. You know, I heard you were really successful. I know that what you've done is very amazing. And then they're going to ignore you. So 3 days later, you send the exact same email again. Now, my recommendation is to recreate the email. Don't forward it and say, hey, you didn't respond. recreate the email and send it to them 3 days later. And remember, it doesn't mean that they don't want to talk to you if they don't respond, because I get 300 emails a day. I may see your email and say, wow, what a cool person, I want to talk to them. But by the second day, you're under 500 more emails. So just be aware of that. So you send it the second time 3 days later. If they ignore that, you wait about 4 days, and now you're into the second week, and you send a third email, and that email has a new top on it. Dear Mr. Wilson, I don't seem to have an accurate email address for you. This is what I've been trying to find out last week and this week. And here's a sentence that has a really high response rate. I would be truly grateful if you would have even a moment to respond. People respond to that. I'm going to say it again. I would be truly grateful if you would have even a moment to respond. So you send the 3 emails. If they all fail, then you take your email and turn it into a business letter. And I'm going to promise you, you don't know how to write a business letter if you're under 30. So I want you to Google the words format business letter and get one of those good examples there and copy it. And then you send it to them in the U.S. mail. I want to encourage you to use the U.S. mail because it's disruptive. It's a little bit odd, but not weird. And no one ever gets a really kind of formal looking letter from a young person, so it's super impressive. So you write to them and you say, Dear Mr. Wilson, I don't seem to have an accurate email address for you. I've been trying to find out these things from you by email. And then you list it again. And I would be really, truly appreciative if we could connect even for a moment. And then you put your email in there and invite them to email you back, because that's how they'll do it. So then you send a letter. And then 24 hours after you know they have the letter. And the Postal Service can now tell you the delivery times for all cities now. So that's really a big improvement. So they'll tell you exactly when it arrives. The next morning, you call and leave a message. Now, don't demand a response. I want you to learn how to leave a message. How do I put this? It's a polite nudge, not a demand. So you say, Dear Mr. Wilson, or you call it, Hey, Mr. Wilson, this is Donnie Asher. I sent you a letter, which you should have gotten yesterday. Really love to connect with you about that letter. My email and phone's in that letter. Thank you so much. Now, you'll notice I said I'd really like to connect with you. I didn't say, hey, why didn't you call me back? So that's the minimum effort, minimum effort. Now, I'm going to put on the screen what I consider the correct amount of effort to contact someone that you don't know in a job search. So the hidden job market really involves kind of 2 types of jobs. Jobs that aren't released yet, not really officially launched yet, and then it also includes jobs that are launched and even maybe posted. So I want to talk to you, I'll just draw pictures that will show you why the hidden job market methodologies are so much more effective. So let's start with the idea that you're going to apply for a posted opening, but you want to use hidden job market techniques to be an inside candidate. So let's take a look at this. So this is a resume sorting software. I mean, it looks like a funnel, and it is a funnel, but it's really just resume sorting software. So let's say 10,000 resumes go into the top of this. And I want to remind you that the module on posted openings, I told you how to get through resume sorting software. So if you're applying for posted opening, make sure you do that. So here's the 10,000 resumes, and the resume sorting software sorts those. And here's the boss's desk right there, into 4 candidates that they're going to talk to. So out of there, so your chances of coming through that funnel are 2,500 to 1. And by the way, these are pretty normal numbers if you're using database tools to search for candidates. So there's the 4 resumes, the succeeders that beat 2,500 to 1 odds, and I promise you they're nearly perfect. And here's the boss. Here she is. She's happy because she went to lunch and she had a martini. She shouldn't have, the 80s are over, but she still did it. So she comes in a little happy, and she's looking at these resumes. There she is looking at them. And she knows something about one of those resumes, and every employer in the world knows this. The lie rate on resumes is about 25% on management level resumes. So she knows that one of these resumes is a liar, but she doesn't know which one it is. Then the door opens, and here's your friend Stacy. She went to lunch with the boss. They both had martinis. She's happy too. She got your resume in her hand. She puts it right there on the desk and says to her boss friend, this is somebody I went to school with. He's great. He's awesome. You know what? She doesn't even have to say that you're awesome. She just has to say that she knows you. This resume is different than these resumes. This resume is not a liar because this person is vouching for the contents of that resume. This is how you beat 1,000 to 1 odds in a job search, even applying for posted openings, if you can be the inside candidate. This process, by the way, of having somebody refer you to their own company, 30% of new hires come from this source, the most of any source at all. You want to have, this woman's name is Stacy. There she is, Stacy. More Stacys, fewer funnels. That's the hidden job market. So that's how the hidden job market works when there's a posted opening and a job that's already created. But let's take a look at how the hidden job market works when the job's not created yet. And this is kind of really the sweet spot on the hidden job market. So this is a highly sophisticated technical diagram, and I know that not all of you are MBAs, but if you'll just draw this on your paper, you can extract a lot of meaning from it later, okay? So here we go. Here's a manager, and she's happy. All right, you getting this? Okay, so as long as she's happy, does she have a job for you? No, happy people don't need you. So remember this when you date. Don't date happy people because they don't need you. So she's happy, she doesn't need you. But here's what happens to people over time. They become less happy. And this axis is time, and that's what makes this an MBA diagram because the bottom axis on all financial diagrams is time. So she's unhappy. She'll be unhappy up to 18 months before she decides to do anything about it. And then one day, she's happy again. And she's happy because she's decided to hire somebody. So here's the light bulb representing her decision to hire somebody. And this is kind of a trick question, but what's the next thing she does after she decides to hire somebody? Well, she will do absolutely nothing for at least 2 weeks. She's made the decision, but she's not doing anything about it. And then she's going to do what's called an internal informal search. So she's going to go up and down the hallway where she works and say, hey, does anybody know someone who could help us out with responding to all these marketing queries we've gotten? I mean, we're just getting way behind. So this internal informal search, if and only if it fails, and this is the formal logic signal for if and only if it fails, then she's going to launch a formal job search requisition. And so she'll write a job description. Okay, here's the job description. And then she's going to post the position. Now, your job, if you're working the hidden job market, is to approach this woman anywhere to the left of this spot, if you want my opinion. Anywhere to the left of this spot. Let's look at the competition. First of all, the sweet spot is right here. What's your competition when she's made the decision to hire and she's doing nothing about it? Nobody. Nobody. Now, I told you, all companies are hiring at the entry level all the time. So all you got to do is be here at the right time because you're in the right place. The internal informal search, that's going to produce 5 or 6 other candidates, and you're going to have to beat 5 or 6 people. Up here, all you got to do is beat inertia, okay? You're the solution to the problem she has not decided to solve yet. But after she writes the job description, this drops precipitously in terms of viability for candidates. If they write the job description, it's you versus the ideal candidate. Let me assure you, a recent college graduate is never an ideal candidate, okay? So that's a lot of competition right there. But once it's posted, it's 383 people against you. That's the worst place to get involved in this. So I want you out there talking to managers, talking to hiring people, anybody, so that you're to the left of this line right here. That's the hidden job market, and that's how you find positions before they're announced. So I guess I have only like a couple tiny little points more to make about this. You don't have to be clever to make this work for you. I worked with a woman who was interested in working in commercial real estate in the state of California. She made a list of 200 consulting firms that she thought were kind of hot. She went to their website and got 2 emails off of those 200 websites. That's 400 emails that she had. And then she did it by hand. Every 2 weeks, she wrote to those 400 people one at a time and said, I've updated my resume since we last had contact. Now, I don't let candidates tell lies. So I said, if you say that, you got to change your resume every couple of weeks. She said, I don't want to do that. The resume's perfect. I said, you have to. So then what she did was every 2 weeks, she would put her middle initial in. And then the next 2 weeks, she'd take it back out. 2 weeks later, she put it back in. People caught on to this, and they would call her up, and they would say, you're just putting your middle initial in and out. And she said, yeah, that's true, but I'm so glad to be talking to you. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be clever to do this. You just have to do it. By the way, when she got her first position, 6 or 8 people sent her resume to a headhunter, And he called her up and said, I just got your resume today from 6 different people, so I know that you're a hot item. And she did this every 2 weeks. I've updated my resume since we last had contact. Attached is the new version. Call me if anything comes to mind. Quintessential hidden job market technique. Now, I want to invite you to be creative. Use that book, Cracking the Hidden Job Market. And on the resources page, there's a link to a story on YouTube called Iden Gets a Job. I hope you'll take a look at that. This is a very important module. When you run out of ideas, put your energy into this. Good luck.